Welcome to the Morning Outlook by Kalkine TV. I'm Sage. And the US markets traded lower on Thursday with the increase of US inflation for the sixth successive month being heavily dependent on the geopolitical crisis and peace talks between Ukraine and Russia, which failed. And the US President Biden has placed sanctions on Russian oil, which will now have an impact, especially on the transport industry in the US, with companies such as Uber and Lyft impacted. The Dow Jones Index closed lower by 112 or 112 points or 0.3% to 33,174.07 after being down 466 points at session lows. The S&P 500 index fell by 0.4% to 4,259.52 and the Nasdaq index shed 126 points or 1% to 13,129.96. In the US economic data, the February Consumer Price Index, or CPI, set a 39-year high, rising by 0.8%, making it up 7.9% for the year. And the core CPI, excluding food and energy prices, rose by 0.5% to be up 6.4% on the year, also setting a new record after 39 years. The US jobs data showed that claims rose by 11,000 to reach 227,000. In Australia, the Deputy Governor Debelle has stepped down from his position at the central bank and will move to the energy sector, where he'll take on the role of CFO at Fortescue Metals, with a focus on renewable energy resources. The RBA of Australia's Governor, Philip Lowe, is also warning mortgage holders of rate rises in the near term, sooner than expected due to the impacts of higher inflation levels, possibly reaching about 4%. European share markets fell on Thursday after the European Central Bank, or the ECB, announced a surprise exit from the pandemic-related stimulus, with plans in place for the ECB to end its asset purchases in the September quarter. The Pan-European Stock 600 index fell by 1.7%, with shares of automakers and banks down the most 4.8% and 3.2% respectively. And the German DAX index shed 2.9% and the UK FTSE index lost 1.3% as well. In the London trade, shares of Rio Tinto fell by 4.7% as they traded ex-dividend, but BHP shares added 1%. And the shares of the tech giants slumped. Apple 2.7% down and Tesla 2.4% down. However, Amazon shares jumped 5.4% and the company has just announced a 20-for-1 stock split and US $10 billion share buyback. At the moment, inflation is pushing the retail sector higher, but we'll have to wait and see if wages can keep up as a risk of stagflation is present in the UK. And the US Treasuries dropped on Thursday with higher yields after US inflation data confirmed rapidly rising prices, confirming expectations of a US Federal Reserve interest rate hike as soon as next week. And the US Treasury sold $20 billion of 30-year notes at a yield of 2.375% as demand increased. And the US 10-year yields rose by 4 points to near 1.99%. And the 2-year yields in the US lifted by 2 points to near 1.70%. Global oil prices fell by around 2% on Thursday, making it the biggest plunge in 2 years. In the previous trading session, uncertainty over the Russian crude supplies does continue to roil the oil market, despite Moscow's reassurance over its contractual energy obligations at this stage. The Brent crude price fell by US $1.81 a barrel, or 1.6%, down to $109 US 33 cents a barrel. And the US NYMEX crude price dropped by $2 US 68 cents, or 2.5%, down to $106 US dollars and 2 cents a barrel. The base metal prices traded mixed on Thursday. Aluminium was up, jumping 2.7%, the biggest move in almost 4 years, after the UK joined the US in announcing more Russian sanctions. And the Russia supplying the world with 6% of the aluminium definitely adds to that data. Copper also rose by 1.3%. However, lead and zinc both fell by 1.9%. The gold futures price were up $12 US 20 cents or 0.6% to reach US $2,000.40 an ounce. Spot gold traded near US $1,996 an ounce at the US close, and iron ore decreased to $1.20 US or 0.8%, reaching $156 US 35 cents a tonne. Gas was up to 0.94% and the Asian markets were looking up, with Japan's Nikkei 225 being up 3.94% and Hong Kong's Hang Seng being up as well 1.27%. The Australian market closed on Thursday with 8 of 11 sectors being up, with information tech and consumer discretionary bolstered by Myer's huge share price jump of over 20%. On Thursday, Rio Tinto and South32 from the energy space in Australia dropped, however, both going ex-dividend, with Rio Tinto paying out the second largest dividend of $6.62 a share and South32 paying their biggest dividend of 12 cents a share. The stock prices both fell yesterday, 7.73% and 3.65% respectively. In the US, the energy minerals was up 33.3% and health services followed behind, being up 2.89%. 4 out of 12 US sectors were in the green, and technology services was the worst performing sector, being down 18.05%. The Star Entertainment Group in Australia is awaiting the Royal Commission proceedings, continuing with interviews of witnesses to further investigate the allegations of money laundering and non-compliance of policies. The witnesses will include Chinese billionaire Philip Dong Fang Li, and it was reported by Sydney Morning Herald that jobs could be on the line depending on the outcome of these interviews. And that's all for today's Morning Outlook report. Thanks for joining us for the pre-market report, and I hope you have a great day trading. But keep watching Kalkine TV for more of the live expert talks and market insights. This is Sage here, signing off for now.